QBTS is in a big spot. We have seen that drop off from 46 to 75 since now showing a lot of strength at a core level. This could be the absolute bottom for QBTS. First, as always, going to the weekly. So, already, man, we got a mover here. Very strong mover over within QBTS. We're clearly back testing this very strong support. It does not take a genius to note this very heavy support. We've seen some very heavy defenses. When you see very respective wicks after a very big drop off, at one point, stock price was $46.75. You're looking at that stock a little bit, 2 weeks later, and then boom, right back. Now you're seeing a strong wick at that level, based right back on this breakout with multiple bodies and wicks simultaneously. So first and foremost, on the weekly analysis, there's a no-brainer level. Exact same, similar, identical setup to over here. We had one of those simple ranges over the top. What are you following? That very simple key swing high, right? And that did lead to a big breakout. We've seen the same thing over here with this very obvious swing high. And as of right now, that's happening to the contrary. Okay, we're seeing some very heavy defense on this level with multiple weeks simultaneously, which is a hard thing to get on a stock like QBTS, as typically, once again, these high flyers have a lot of liquidity and they make massive movements. So to have them come back and have a little bit of base here, it actually does look very attractive from a short and a risk management perspective. So first and foremost, I do not think we will collapse these lows as price activity is starting to dull out, and we've had a $46.75 drop off from that level. Okay, so there is a little bit of pit, at least to give a little bit just of momentum strength. Okay, this is a lot of the overall quantum stocks as of right now, but within this heavy defense, the overall prediction, guys, is that we will not break below this. This would be very surprising to see QBTS close below $26.40 to be exact. Let's go mark that up. Right, if we see that close under 26.45, sorry about that, guys, 26.45, that is the obvious swing low where we've had about 8 weeks defense at this core breakout level. This is the level that broke us from 26.45 to 46.75. So from a weekly perspective, we're getting that strong activity around this level. It does appear we're going to get the break in the retest to go higher. Overall, it does look very nice for the bulls. Expect them to work their way up to 37.21. Definitely a bulls chart, guys. Very obvious. Setting these very nice higher lows is a very strong sign to do in such a high flying stock. It is very impressive to have these nice steps up higher. And if we do see a little bit of upside, there's a lot of room all the way up to these upper wicks. We're on the daily analysis, and notice stock price had an identical pennant breakout. Okay, we've continued to see these pennant breakouts or these flags. Okay, a classic lower high or even high within this instance and higher lows. Okay, they're marching up higher, the buyers, and they're testing these highs back to back to back. This is a about almost a year breakout. Boom, big pop from 11 pushing to 20. We've seen the pattern continue over here, reapproaching the high, breaking over. What are we seeing as of right now? Well, from the market structure, as of right now, we're in that, once again, that cool off phase where we're getting that explosive activity, that next big structure that likely will get that strong pop to at least test back to that 37.20-ish high, back to that 36.50. Okay, there is some seller rejection at these highs, you can clearly note. But until then, there's a pretty big gap, guys. Okay, so if we see this breakout, definitely promising for the bulls here. And it does appear we're very thin within the current market structure. Within the last 1, 2, 3, 4 days, we have seen a drop off, but then we've seen the bounce. And now we're seeing two hammer candles. When you start to see these hammer candles within the end of this pattern, this is a good sign that this is going to continue. Okay, so first and foremost, over the course of the next few days, wouldn't be shocking if we filled this out and just consolidate it, and this would actually be very good for the buyers, as then you're marinating that energy right on this very strong level. Note the second we got down to 26.45, we boom right above that very strong bounce, guys, and now we're kind of having that bounce and then a little bit of a cool off to potentially get that next leg up. So you could see quick short-term upside. Definitely wouldn't make sense to pull down too much or go any below 26.45. But from a structural perspective, we're still in the middle of the apex of the structure, and this is where the volatility typically is low. When we look at the last time we were in the apex of the structure, right, we started to see these hammer candles form over here, got very, very thin, 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 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, barely any movement till we closed over the top with the volume confirmation. We did highlight that on the channel as the breakout, and we've seen a very strong movement. Okay, this did lead to a very strong upside. If we get a tracking measurement for this price target, guys, that was 189% movement. If we take about 50% within that, roughly, okay, you're looking at roughly around a 94.3% retracement. If we take that from the breakout level, you could be targeting right back at this $46.75 high. It does make sense for more long term. Whether way this builds out, whether chops around a little bit and then goes a little bit later, or we see an outright test of this high within the next few days and a push and a breakout, it does seem that 8 out of 10 times, the way the market is structured, zooming out once again, I mean, we're seeing these common, very simple continuations, right? Continuation, and now we have this very sharp descending trend line variation, and we're really pressed down at this major support, showing this big reversal sign, starting to get thin. At an absolute worst, I do think the buyers are going to sit here and battle, not really do much. It's going to be a pretty thin week. That would make sense from a more medium term, but all in all, double thumbs up for me, guys. We've seen a strong, very strong defense of this 26.45 support, and as of right now, it is hard for me to believe that the bulls will not keep defending that level if we even go down to test that. Alrighty, guys, so we're now going to jump over to the hourly analysis. This is a great perspective for the short term of things. Okay, you don't want to overanalyze the hourly, but this is once again good for the short term. So we are seeing stock price kind of accumulate within a short term pennant. Okay, so this could leave a little bit of pop. Okay, definitely seeing this on the hourly changes our short term perspective a little bit. Okay, so I think we do likely get a rise back, pressing to $31s, $32, and then likely rejecting and then getting more thin. Is typically when you're in this kind of structure, setting these strong lows at the end of this apex structure within this very nice pennant, which we will highlight yellow just to make it a little bit more clear for you guys. Right, so typically we'll, if we have a little bit of pattern at that bottom right here, typically use this to go up and get the rejection point and then to come a little bit lower and then break out. So that does make sense. I do think you see a test at 32, likely a pullback, pretty shallow pullback more likely than not, and then a retest breakout. All in all, the hourly does look good. Short-term upside could be in play, but I'm not screaming, about the next 3 days with QBTS. Is once again on the daily analysis, we have a very long-term breakout here. Once we see a little bit of continuation over, these highs of these $31 levels, starting to separate from that, that's when we could see this more long-term upside back to that 46.75 high. This makes a whole lot of logical sense. There's not a lot of selling rejection besides this very core, $36 to $37 resistance. Okay, there is some slight rejection over here, but really we have a pretty big runway all the way from 37 to 46. You gotta love when a very strong stock doesn't have much resistant market points, and that's continued to be a trend. I mean, in the past, we broke over the top. What was really stopping stock price over this high? Not much. We've seen a massive upside. So granted, yes, we do have some, rejection points up here now, but they are pretty shallow, and you gotta love the defense. So overall, QBTS is a very strong stock here. I definitely would advise to buy or hold if we do break $26.45. Definitely pushing lower to that next support at 23.60 makes 100% logical sense. This needs to hold if you are a buyer. 100% number one level. Keep that on your chart, guys. But with that being strong, a strong 8 out of 10 opportunity that QBTS will get the upside it needs. The overall market does look pretty good. Maybe we see a little bit of a pullback, but all in all, you got to think the market did recover. So got to keep that in mind too. We're working in a pretty good environment. All in all, QBTS, double thumbs up. If you guys found any value in the video today, consider dropping a sub and a like. We'll continue to cover QBTS, Wave, Quantum as much as you guys want. Okay, typically don't cover these quantum stocks, but I know we've been covering a handful, covering APLD since $6, guys at 28. I mean, they've been some incredible movers. IONQ, what have you. So Let me know if you guys want that kind of content. Have a good one, guys. Take care, trade smart, and peace.